Who here has or grew up with siblings? Yeah, me too. 3 brothers, lots of fighting. Sometimes we did things that were not so nice to one another, and it would result in one of us going to tell a parent, and the other one coming back saying something like, "But I didn't mean to, it was an accident," right? I didn't do it on purpose. You see, because at a young age, we learned that doing things on accident somehow makes it okay. And that on purpose is not necessarily a good thing. But when are we ever intentionally taught that we could make good things happen and we could do that on purpose? I want to take a few moments to walk us through 3 practical ideas to help us live a little bit more purposefully each day. All right, raise a hand. Who is comfortable sitting in this room right now? Yeah, I mean, besides it being a little bit chilly in here, it's a pretty comfortable setting. If you were to ask me that question right now, I'd answer a little bit differently. This isn't necessarily a place of comfort for me, but the question isn't, are we comfortable right now? The question is, are you safe and comfortable all the time? Do you live your life that way every day? If we were to look up the word uncomfortable in the dictionary, it would say things like pain and rough. Well, then no wonder we attempt to avoid this discomfort at all costs, even though successful people say that in discomfort is where the magic happens, right? So I want us to unlook at the way we see the word comfortable and begin to feel what it's like to be more uncomfortable. Because when we're uncomfortable, we create change. When we're uncomfortable, we grow, we make significant impact. Now, we all have a comfort zone, but it varies in size depending on our experiences and our achievements. But I read something recently called the 2% mindset, and their research suggests that 98% of our population live the majority of their time in the comfort zone. 98%. That means we're blending in, we're safe and secure, it's predictable, we know what's going to happen from one moment until the next. And that only 2% of us are living most of our time in the uncomfortable zone, living with less limits, real change is happening, choosing happiness even though it's uncomfortable, life, it's exciting. And now I'm not suggesting that you have to radically change who you are to live more time in the uncomfortable zone. All I'm saying is that you can take baby steps to create changes in your behavior. Learn something new. Overcome a fear. Point is, really, really awesome stuff is rarely going to happen in a safety net. And whether we want to admit it or not, our comfort zones are overrated. We make them up. Do something different. Do something you're afraid of. Invite yourself to a meeting that you have no business being in and allow that internal rubber band just to have a little bit more tension. All right, so get uncomfortable and then raise a brow. Look to your neighbor and raise the best brow that you can right now. Yeah, I wasn't given that gift either. It's not as easy as some people make it look. But figuratively speaking, have you ever been in a conversation or in a meeting and someone said something or a decision was made but you felt differently? You had another opinion but you didn't say anything. Have you ever walked by something and noticed that that wasn't right, but you turned away and you let it go and you chalk it up to you being crazy or being paranoid? What I want to say is that it's okay to question. It's okay to listen to what's inside of our gut. And then once you do that, when you raise question inside, what do? Do you hoard your emotions and that information because it's easier to? In fact, it's the opposite of being bold. Or do you speak up? Are you okay standing out? This is a picture of my friend Ty's little girl, and they were like, pose for a picture, and she did. And it's beautiful, and she didn't do anything wrong, but she wasn't afraid to be different. Can you take the first step when nobody else is walking with you? Can you raise your hand when everybody else wants to sit on theirs? Speak up. All right, so I told you the 3 points that I wanted to point out. Get uncomfortable, raise a brow, and be bold. Now I'm going to take just a few minutes and share a story about 4 colleagues of mine and myself that happened. And I want you to see if you can recognize where these 3 points are threaded through the story, and at different points in the story, how it affects the different characters, let's say. All right, so earlier this year, we were in Africa on a 10-day work trip. And it was a Sunday, supposed to be our rest day. We were gonna go to an hour church service, we were gonna go to lunch, and then we were gonna do some shopping. Or we had an option to take a 2-hour bumpy drive to a town called Kageyo, which is one of the poorest cities in the country of Rwanda, and we had the opportunity to go to church there. We were like, well, awesome, yeah, let's do that. So we did, and it was 3 hours of, unless you've ever been to Kageyo, unlike anything you've seen in your entire life, I promise, it was amazing. And then instead of leaving after, someone said, hey, can we go out into the community and meet some of the local people and begin to build some relationships and walk door to door? And they're like, yeah, sure, but first you have to walk down this hill. So there's this windy hill, we go down, and before we hit the corner, there's this building. And the building's about the size of an elementary school gymnasium. If you can picture that for a second, it's dark, kind of squatty. And what we found there was less than 36 hours prior, there were a group taking refuge from a nearby country of about 40 families. No electricity, no running water here, just a place of shelter. And so naturally we stayed there and never made it to one of those houses. So for a couple hours, we heard their stories. We learned that in 6 to 8 weeks, the government would intervene to give them permanent housing, but that they would be here that whole time. And that in this poor city of Rwanda, the people had rallied around them and provided them with basic supplies, clothes, and what food they could gather, mostly consisting of boiled cabbage and carrots. And they basically had like 2 restrooms for about 250 people. Can you picture that for a second? If you live in a house of 10 with 1 restroom, that's absurd. So we hang out and we play with kids and we wipe sweaty foreheads and we listen to stories and see the living conditions, and someone says it's time to go. So we get in the car and we leave. The next morning, we're at breakfast, we do our morning readings, and it's time to go. So we, you kind of all do this, we're getting up, and one guy says something. One of the 5 of us says, hey, is anybody still thinking about those people we met yesterday? Then we all kind of sit back down. And that started a 45-minute conversation that by the end of it, we all had this fire in our belly going, we were not there by accident yesterday. There's only 5 of us, but we can do something. So we get on the phone and we call the local community leaders and the pastors and we say, listen, we don't know how we can help you, but we're going to help you. What do you need? So we figured out what that meant, and we knew that we couldn't do it alone, so we created an online fundraising account because we were going to ask people, our friends and our family, to help. But then we also got on the phone with our company and said, look, this is what we found. This is what's going on. This is what we want to do, but how can you help? And they said, we will match every dollar up to $5,000. We were like, yes. But we have to get crazy and ask people. So we did. We got on our social media channels. We emailed everybody we can think of. As the hours went on, we became desperate. Because in desperation for these people, we felt like we had to be that for them. If we weren't going to be desperate, who was? So then we became a little bit more nuts and started asking people directly that had way more influence than we did. And then those people began to post for us and ask their friends with influence to help. And the cycle would repeat itself time and time again. And within 48 hours, our friends and our family, and actually some people sitting in this very room today, helped us raise that $5,000. With that match was $10,000. And we were able to give those people what they needed temporarily, go back, hug on them a little bit more. What I'm saying is that you don't have to go to Africa to get uncomfortable, right? But you have to challenge yourself with this. Don't wait for those rare and lucky moments for opportunity to come knocking, right? Opportunity sits around you all the time. Keep your eyes open and keep your head on a swivel, and you will see it when it presents itself. So I'm challenging all of us to live on purpose and start today. Thank you.